Liege Games here, baby. What's up? It's Chris. Let's do this. October hotness this week and a little bit of the internet news roundup all in one. So let's take a look. Post Essen, what is flying high? What's getting all the clicks? What do you need to know about? As always, if you like it, subscribe. Otherwise, let's get into this. Let's do this. I mean, I've already talked about it twice, so why not talk about it again? This is BItoku. This is a dice worker placement game in the style of forest spirits trying to transcend to become the next great forest spirit. You're going to have your own unique domain that is going to be asymmetric from other players, and you're going to just try to do what you normally do in a Euro game like this. There is a lot going on. This is a mess in terms of like Argent the Consortium level of stuff going on. You're going to be getting more options, sending your 3 spirit guardians out to get you more options for your workers in the first place. You're going to be building in other places of the forest. You're going to be collecting resources. You're going to be doing a little bit of everything as evidenced by, well, this board in the first place. So what is it going to entail? How is it going to come together? Is it going to be the sum of the parts are greater than the individual parts? Is it going to be another bonfire, which, people, sort of said there was just a lot of stuff going on, maybe too much, one of the latest Felds. I have no idea. This is outside of my realm of things. A lot of this stuff this week is, but it's on there. We need to talk about it, and we need to know, well, why it's out there in the first place. And, because we always find stuff that's more appealing than we initially thought in the first place as well. So that's what you need to know. There's a lot going on. The artwork is there. There's a lot of iconography. I don't know. This one is out there. It's on the hot list for a reason, but check it out if you're interested. Otherwise, there you go. Next up is Ark Nova. This is another interesting take on things. This is actually being published over in North America by Capstone Games, and you may know them from several of their other games. It seems like this kind of was a mishmash name, right? They have like Arkwright, and then they have like New York Zoo, and then they have Savannah Park, and then they have Renature, which are all very similarly, except for Arkwright, I'm just using that as a name example, very similarly, cohesively, narratively, thematically. They're all very thematically similar, especially with like the Savannah Park and the New York Zoo. And now you have Ark Nova, which is another in the line of things. Now, the difference in this one, as opposed to a couple of the other ones that I just mentioned, is that you're going to be using 5 of these cards to manage your actions and upgrade each of the actions that you're going to have in order to manage and build the best zoo in the first place. So it's completely different than something like New York Zoo, which is more of a polyomino. This is 255 unique cards that you're going to be drafting and obtaining and trying to utilize to the best of your ability through the 5 different actions that you have in the first place. And how you use them is going to matter, better than your opponent, if you will. Here you can see an example of some of the art. So they've got, real examples of real life nature on there and animals, but then they've also got a fair amount of text and symbology going on it as well. So it's not going to be sort of this simple tableau building game. There's going to be multiple elements, multiple layers to each of these areas. And so it's going to be a little bit deeper from that standpoint. We'll see what happens with it. I believe that it's getting an Essen release, but now again, obviously like a lot of the Essen releases on this list, like, okay, well, there's basically even before the pre-orders. And so you'll probably maybe see it before the end of the year, but I wouldn't also be surprised if a lot of these Essen pre-orders don't always end up even before Q1 of 2022, just by the nature of things, especially with the nature of shipping nowadays. So who knows what's going to happen from that side of things, but that is Ark Nova from Capstone Games. Next up from Cranio Creations, this is a worker placement called, well, Golem. You are managing, building, attacking, destroying golems. This is by the same people that brought you Grand Austria Hotel and Lorenzo. And so the pedigree is already there. And so that's why this was one of the more hyped worker placement games going into Essen in the first place. Definitely way too deep for me. 4 rounds, but each round has 7 phases. Oh, it just hurts me even saying that in the first place. You're apparently going to have these colored marbles that are going to line up with different actions each round. And there's going to be some variability there, which again, you may or may not like depending on how perfect of an information game you like in your Euro or even worker placement style of games. And they determine the strength of that action. And you're going to have these 5 different actions. And you're going to be trying to mitigate then, obviously, by a turn-by-turn, round-by-round basis in how you take them, what order you take them in, and how you utilize them. Again, lots of iconography in this Euro game as well. So you're going to be trying to control as many golems as you can, but if a golem gets uncontrolled, then it can go on a rampage and destroy the neighborhood, and you can lose points, and you're going to have to destroy it and bury it yourself in order to deal with it. Now, the color of the marbles, apparently that also matters, because if you get the right combination, you're going to get a powerful bonus there at the end of the round as well. So most points at the end wins. Again, we'll see it as an Essen release when it comes to the, the wider side of retail things, and we'll see how it does once more people get it in their hands and feel about it. So there you go, Golem. Next up, also Capstone Games, hitting it out of the park right now, Feister's latest Boonlake, which, there's no mechanisms associated with it in the BoardGameGeek listing right now, which is really interesting. But basically, you're in this area and you're trying to explore it, and you're expanding this city. And how you do it is going to have lasting effects through a quote-unquote novel action mechanism, whatever that means. Here you can see a little bit of what the board looks like. There's a couple comments on the BoardGameGeek forum that talk about it maybe being more in lines with something like, or at least the table presence of Clans of Caledonia. Again, outside of my depth, outside of my knowledge base, I know that there were orders and availability limited at Essen. So I imagine, again, you can see the pre-orders are available at some of the major distributors online. So, I mean, we'll see when it comes out over the next couple months, sort of where it falls and how it's compared to Feister's other games, sort of like Maracaibo, if you will, as well. So apparently it's going to have an Automa, so we'll kind of see. It's appealing for all player counts from that side of things then. I think 1 to 4, so check it out if you're interested. The other big worker placement game that has really, honestly, I did not see any hype about this before Essen, but the one I saw people posting online about the most and, grabbing up is Messina 1347. And the concept of this game is that you are one of the major families in Messina, Italy during the Black Plague, and you are trying to escape the city in fear of contracting it, essentially. And so you're trying to rescue other inhabitants, you're trying to manage resources in order to do so, you're trying to also, there's a lot of luxury goods moving around, so you're trying to manage those as well. And so it's a little bit of everything from all of those sides of things as a worker placement style game. Here you can see a little bit of what you're going to be getting yourself into with the grids and the iconography. I guess just off of early reports, it sounds like it's a really heavy game from that side of things. Now again, I mean, this is well outside of my depth. Here, we'll blow this up so you can get a little bit better view of what it looks like and a little bit more of what the boards look like. But I mean, this looks like there is a lot of stuff going on in these segments. I'm assuming these are your personal cities. And then there's also a main board as well. I mean, there's a ton of stuff going on here. So if it really is as heavy as they say, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you're talking, maybe even on Mars level. But I mean, again, outside of my depth, I'll leave it up to you guys, but that is why Messina 1347 is out there, and it's going to see, again, how all of these kind of compare. Where is the tier or the ranking going to be, 6 months from now from these games? Because it's always interesting to see which ones have any lasting appeal, and, frankly speaking, half of these games I'm talking about right now on this list, you probably won't have anyone talking about them in 6 months at all. So which ones are which, though? I have no idea, but that's why it's interesting to talk about them in the first place. Next up, did someone say Brazil during the 18th and 19th centuries? Well, if you did, you just won, because this is Brazil Imperial. This is a 4X take on the construction and the advancement of the Brazilian culture during those times. Now, it's a little bit of a worker placement area majority asymmetric powers from those aspects. And so, combination with the 4X side of things, it's almost more like Voidfall in South America in those times, rather than, strictly a sole worker placement style game. The other big thing is, obviously, there are 7 different actions on your turn that you're going to be taking, apparently, and it's going to be divided up into 2 phases, sort of the movement phase and then the possible, attack phase. So you can actually attack, because, if you're going to call it a 4X, you kind of have to have that, right? Otherwise, it's not a 4X at all. And you can explore or attack in that sense. Now, obviously, they're calling this sort of a Euro X, if you will, with a combination of that, and maybe Voidfall should have patented that first, but now they've got that name out there. So again, we're going to see a lot more of this, because, if it's successful, and Voidfall is clearly successful, other people are going to copy. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, as they say, and I would be shocked if you don't see more of this if people are well receiving this in the first place. Honestly, again, nothing that appeals to me from this side of things, but I know a lot of you guys out there are looking for something heavy, are looking something akin to Voidfall, but with a little bit less Euro-y, and so maybe this is, especially if you don't mind the theme, much more up your alley. So check it out. Look, next up is Nizia's Siege of Runedar. This is on my high list, one of the few games out of Essen that I actually have interest in. And we're going to see where it goes. I know there were some English copies floating around. Rado's already got a preview out. I'm going to talk about it at least once or twice in the next week or two, and it's going to be interesting to see where things go. Now, they talk about it a little bit as a deck construction, but it's really more of a deck builder where you have these two cards that are going to be triggering in-game events in your deck all the time that are never released, but then you're going to be buying other weapons and buying other upgrades and doing it sort of in a tower defense manner to actually fend off the orcs. The interesting part of this is, as you can see here, we'll flip back here a second, you can see that this is not just a render. This is an actual, like, part of the board game. And so you're storing stuff in there, but you're also doing it as a 3D element there, which is really kind of cool. You don't see a lot of that. And so how does it actually thematically incorporate? Does it work? I have no idea, but again, it's sort of something that I've never really seen before in terms of those two mechanics. And again, I love seeing ingenuity because it breeds imitation further down the line with further adaptation. And so that's what I want to see, especially from this. And so who knows if it's as good as I'm hoping it is, but I'm super intrigued by it. Hopefully the North American distribution comes out in the next couple months so I can maybe pick up a copy at some point. There you go. You probably heard this one before. This is Furnace. Furnace is still kicking around. It was at Gen Con, it was at Origins, and now it's got a little bit more hype on the Essen side of things. It's an engine building sort of card game where you're going to be blind bidding. It's sort of this engine building card game where you are going to be assigning values 1 to 4 of 4 different cards at least out on this tableau, and you can't have the same number on any tableau, and then you're going to be acquiring them, and then you're going to be using them to build your engine through several rounds in order to maximize the resources produced. Again, it's a more, semi-language independent game because of the iconography. People are really kind of divided on it. Some people are really high on it right now. Some people are kind of low on it, saying, well, there's, sort of the samey after 2 or 3 plays, because it is more of a engine builder and the engine doesn't vary as much as they may like. And honestly, I don't know. This is one of those where I think I'd have to have some hands-on experience to know whether or not it's for me. I like engine building. I just don't have a lot of it. Res Arcana for me is sort of the creme de la creme at this point, and anything else is going to have to satisfy me from those sides of things, because as good as those mechanics are, that's always my biggest concern. So, I know it's on pre-order right now. I think it's available in some places as well. We'll see when it becomes more widely available and more opinions start to weigh in. I think a lot of the major channels have already had it already from that side of things. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start just seeing it pop up a lot more elsewhere as well. So there you go, Furnace. Now, next up, we have Gutenberg. Again, as a worker placement style of things, you're going to have a unique bidding action that's going to allow you, in the 15th century, I believe, modern day working sort of the printing press as it's being built, and become a better protege in order to put out more and more efficient printing press processes. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how this one compares, because this is a unique theme that we really haven't seen a whole lot before, and I have no clue what these gears are. But again, there appears to be a decent amount of stuff going on, and a lot of this actually looks thematically relevant. So this is, again, it's going to be way too heavy for me, not up my ilk, but it's on that list, like I mentioned earlier, of which one of these is going to stand out, which one of these are going to hold the test of time, how many of these are you going to remember a year from now? And honestly, again, I have no idea. But thematically, we are seeing a lot wider variety too nowadays, and so I think you're getting a lot more wide-standing appeal from that side of things. Next up, we have Lost Ruins of Arnak. Just a quick mention here. The expansion, I believe, was premiering at Essen, so we'll kind of see what people think of it as more people have had a chance to experience it, and as it slowly makes its way out to the retail side of things. Then next up, we have from Portal Games, Dune House Secrets, which is a re-implementation of sort of the detective, crime style of things from Portal Games as well. 1 to 4 players, story-driven challenges trying to solve these mysteries/puzzles, just like the game it's based on. Physical components, but also app components, so people need to be aware, just like the original Detective, that there's going to be both. Now, they say there's an introductory sort of scenario to sort of get people into or knowledgeable about the Dune lore in the first place, and then there are 3 scenarios that are supposed to take you somewhere between 2 to 3 hours each in the core game, which is about right for something like this. Reminds me very much of Destiny's in that way, in terms of integrating more of the digital side of things, but also with the self-contained scenarios. How replayable are these scenarios going to be? Sort of like Destiny, that's the question. I have no idea. The Dune lore has never really been a big one for me, but I know it hits true with a lot of people, and we're seeing a lot more of it, especially with the movie coming out in the near future. And so we'll kind of see what sort of wider based appeal it has when more people get their hands on it. Now let's go a little bit to the crowdfunding side of things. Quick crowdfunding updates. Voidfall's ending. Voidfall should have ended by the time this video, I believe, premieres. Like I said before, 4X Euro game. It's killing it from Mindclash Games. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt that it's going to be a solid game, but it's going to be way too deep for me. Again, I love the aesthetic of it. I love the idea of it. I love Turksy telling me that it's going to be Spirit Island in space, but especially from a cooperative, especially if the playtime is 3 to 4 hours, it's going to be way, 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 way too long for me, because Spirit Island is a good, hour and a half game at most for me, and it's perfect from that side of things. And so if you're going to tell me I'm going to do twice that, and maybe a little bit more, that's going to be too heavy for my table and my game group on a routine or any sort of basis. So we'll kind of see. I mean, obviously, it's going to, appeal to a lot of people, and it's going to hit a lot of those thematic, and obviously it's going to hit home from that side of things. But it's a pretty penny too. So I'm happy from a wallet side I can miss it. But anyway, it's going to be making waves, between now and easily when it hits the backers' hands. Next up is Paint the Roses as well, the co-op from North Star Games, which is killing it on Kickstarter right now. If we pop over the page right now, 183,000 at the time of filming this, with 25 days left to go. So this is gonna blow expectations out of the water, at least my expectations. I'm pledging right now. I'm gonna be getting the deluxe pledge. You can make an argument that, again, retail versus, getting it now. There's going to be a Kickstarter module. I don't really need the acrylic side of things. I don't really need necessarily the fancy insert, but I back stuff that I really, really, really feel passionate about, and there's not a lot of that nowadays. So, that's not a ton of games in the first place. So I'm always a fan of supporting it from that side of things, because there's plenty of stuff that I feel like I can wait on too. So Paint the Roses, hard co-op. You're being chased after as royal gardeners of the Queen of Hearts. She's trying to chop off your head. You're trying to deduce without communication what the next tile needs to be played in the garden. If you can fill all the spots up in the garden before getting your heads chopped off, you win. Check it out because it looks like something solid. So there you go. And last up at the time of filming this, ONIMARU, stardate 992 days since the funding campaign ended. Has there been any update? Let's check. No, ONIMARU Watch. The last update is August 17th. Nothing. Factory sample status. We sent stuff to the factory. An actual sample production is going to be coming. Oh, that's funny. It's been 2 months. Nothing. And there were issues last time because there were additional problems with the PDFs wouldn't open. We know this is just another update with sample delay excuses. The next update is going to include some photos of sample production. And good news, like it's underway. Almost complete. Check out the pics. And there's nothing since ONIMARU Watch. Liege of Games. Going on almost 1,000 days since this is funded. Don't worry, I'm going to keep a watch on this. ONIMARU Watch, that is. As this will be probably a repeat segment in future videos. Just because somebody's got to talk about it. We got to keep people accountable in this hobby. So, there you go. So, that's it. News roundup. Quick, dirty. Well, not dirty, but deep and worker deep and worker placement Euro style deep. Definitely not my type of week, but I know a lot of people out there are watching it. And post Essen, we're going to see what floats and what sinks and kind of where things are at. So I'd love to do like a follow-up video on these in like 6 months to say, hey, remember Essen? Remember these games that were hyped over here or hyped over here? You talking about those still? You playing those still? How many of these games are going to be on people's auction from Essen, post-Essen auction 2 weeks from now, a month from now? There's going to be quite a few, I'll tell you right now. So don't buy right now. Wait a month and see what things sort of go down in price. Okay, but that's it. That's all I got. As always, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for making me, where I am at this point. Still feeling like an underdog, still doing things. The other side note is I've seen other people promote this. I'll throw this here in the end. I'd like to get a video on the Hotness on the Board Game Geek page. It's all by clicks. It's all by thumbs on there. So if you guys are my subscribers on YouTube, if you want at some point, let's like coordinate this so I can get one of those videos on there to get more exposure, to get more notice for the channel. But you know what? Do what you feel you can do in the first place. And the fact that you watched and made it this far is plenty for me as well, if that's all that happens. So as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for clicking. Stay classy. Have a great day. Have a great week. whatever's going on. Middle of October. It's almost Halloween. My kids are pumped. Okay. Have a great day. See you around.